Alright, so this is hopefully our final lesson on solving inequalities. We're talking about systems of inequalities, but more advanced ones. So basically our goal, our objective is to basically graph complicated systems of inequalities, ones that need rearranging. So let's look at this inequality first and see if we can put that into graphable form. Y equals mx plus b. Here's what we have. We are going to subtract the 3x. This needs to be, at this point in the year, this needs to be kind of like second nature for you, putting into y equals mx plus b. So I'm just saying that, and if it's not, we've got to meet. You've got to come to CDS, you've got to come after school and get it done. Okay, big deal. What is the big deal? Is that we divided by a negative, right? If we divide by a -4 on everything, both sides, we flip the inequality. So we have y equals, or y is less than, 3/4 x plus 5. So we go to +5, we go up 3/4, and we can go down 3 and back 4, and that gives us our line. And it's a dotted line, so we're going to make a dotted line here. Okay, my suggestion is always to use colored pencils. So in class, you're going to ask me for colored pencils. Keep it on the DL, but when you ask me for colored pencils, I'll know you watched this video and paid attention. So just, keep it on the DL. See how many people we can fake out that won't ask for colored pencils. So just be like, just discreetly ask for colored pencils, and I'll be really proud of you. So we've got y is less than, so you're going to shade this. So let's do this with a red colored pencil. It's my colored pencil today. And then we'll use a blue colored pencil for this guy. So we've got this one. I'm going to just put it into form, and I'm going to just kind of go through it. The usual, we subtracted the 3x from both sides, and now we don't have to flip the inequality. We have -3/8x, a strange slope, but it works. 32 divided by 8 is -4 because it's -32. So we go down to -4. We go down 3/8. I think I got that. And then up 3/8, 2, 4, 6, 8. Perfect, it matches up. Dotted line again because there's no line underneath our inequality. And we shade below, right? What we want to look at is what was shaded blue and red. Well, blue and red together make purple. So purple is this region down here. All of this is blue and red together. Okay, so I'm just going to go for this region right here. Use your colored pencils if you have them. Use them especially when you're in class and ask for them. Remember, when you ask for the colored pencils, you automatically get a little favor in my eyes. I get really excited about that. I'll be very happy. So that's the inequality. So let's kind of keep going. I think I've got one for you to try. Yep, I do. So you need to put this into the correct form and then graph each of these inequalities. So pause the video, give it a shot, try to graph both of these. Remember, if you divide by a negative, you flip the inequality. Remember, you want y equals mx plus b form, but it's not an equals anymore, it's an inequality symbol. And greater than shade above, less than shade below. If there's no line underneath, then you use a dotted line. Okay, so pause the video, give it a shot, and then we will reconvene. We'll meet up in just a minute. Okay, so hopefully that went well, and now we're talking about something I referenced in the last video, and that is writing an inequality from a graph. So we're doing the exact reverse of what we would normally do. We're going to write an inequality looking at a graph, instead of graphing an inequality by looking at an equation. So let's look at this one right here. We'd like the y equals mx plus b, so I'm going to look at this line first, this guy. I'm going to say that it is shaded below, right, if you look here. Some people do arrows, by the way. when they're doing this. They just kind of put arrows. You'll notice that when the computer or the answer keys come up, they only shade that one region because they don't need to double shade stuff and they feel like that would be confusing, so they only shade the purple area, the red and the blue. That's just something to be aware of. So they did shade below and above this, but they only look at the intersection. So sometimes people shade and they do arrows instead of shading everything. Just something to think about. It's an option for you. Just make sure you have this region really clear. So now we want to talk about this. So this is a less than. Y is less than. It's dotted, so it's not an equals to, and it's definitely below. And then we have a y-intercept of 0, so it's going to be like a plus 0. I'm going to erase that, but I want you to see that it is kind of like that. And the slope is just 1x, or just x. So really, if we simplify it down, that's what that line is. Okay? Now we'll look at the next one. This is a horizontal line. So when you have a horizontal line, you got to think about that for a second. Is that a y is greater than, or y is less than, or x is greater than, or x is less than? What is that? Well, it's a solid line. And it's definitely a y is greater than or equal to. So let's talk about that. It's above the line. It's a solid line. Above is greater. Solid is a line underneath. And the y value is -2. So this is actually the system of inequalities that you're dealing with, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the steps. So I want you to fill in these steps. So let me go through those with you. So what was step 1? It was to find the slope and the y-intercept of the first linear inequality. And when we did that, we found, I think that the slope of the first one was 1, and the y-intercept of the first one was 0. Okay, so just go through it step by step. Once you've found the slope and the y-intercept, you need to put that into y equals mx plus b. So in other words, think about this. The slope is the m, so that goes there. The y-intercept is the b, so that goes there. Don't forget the correct symbol. We talked about that. Greater than is shaded above. If there's a line underneath, it's a solid line. If there's no line underneath, it's a dotted line, and so on and so forth. The cool thing is here, please copy this down, but it's basically the same thing. You're doing the same thing over and over. Just be careful, you know, be careful and take care and take your time. But really all you're doing is writing the inequality for the first one, writing the inequality for the second, and then you've actually done the problem in reverse. You've written a system of inequalities. So that's where you need to be. Okay. So now, sorry if that was too fast, just pause it if you need to, just reverse back. So now you try this problem. You need to write a system of inequalities represented by this graph. Okay. So this is the graph that we're looking at. We want to write a system of inequalities from this. Keep in mind that this is shaded lightly, okay, and this is shaded lightly, okay, but they realize that they intersected here, so this is what's shaded in dark, okay. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit better. The book will always just draw it like that, which is fine. You can draw it like that if you want to. It's just not very typical for us because we're using pencils and we just kind of color it in lightly, colored pencils sometimes. All right, so you try that. Pause the video. Give it a second. Okay, and lastly, what does it all mean? Well, at the end of the day, we want to look at this region and say, what is something that works in the system of inequalities? You notice that this is a triangle that has 3 different equations, 3 different lines that made this region. But what is one point that is in the solution of the system? What does that mean? Think about that for a second. Think about what you would say. I'll tell you a point, and I want to know if you can understand why that's a point that's in the solution. It's -1, 2. Why is -1, 2 in the solution? That's the question. So I'm going to plot it for you and see if that jumps out. Well, the solution is everything that you shade in. And I want to tell you that in Algebra 1, we don't talk a lot about what this is used for. We don't get into it as much as we should. But in Algebra 2, this is actually really useful for making your business most profitable, finding the optimal solution for something. A lot of the times it's actually these corner situations. If you're like manufacturing something, if you produce a certain combination, you can make more money. So it could be a way to optimize your revenue from YouTube ads, for example, something I might be doing in the future. Or just, producing a certain amount of widgets and Fujuji buttons or whatever, I don't know. And that can get you the most money. And of course, that's pretty helpful because who doesn't want to make the most money, right? So your job is to actually just name an ordered pair that's not a solution of the system of linear inequalities. Maybe you can name a couple. Maybe you could even name another one that is a solution. But at least name one point that's not a solution. And your answers are going to vary. And that is it. I will see you very soon in class. Good luck, and I hope it was helpful.